والله يدعو إلى دار السلام ويهدي من يشاء إلى صراط مستقيم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على عبده ورسوله الأمين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Last time we discussed the battle of Khaybar and how the Prophet ﷺ, with the grace of Allah, managed to siege all these fortresses of the Jews and conquer the village of Khaybar. And also we discussed that the small village of Fadak, where a group of Jews were there, the Prophet ﷺ went to them, and out of terror and fear, they themselves asked the Prophet ﷺ to have an agreement with him without the need of fighting, and they agreed on giving half of whatever their farms produced to the Prophet ﷺ. Afterwards, the Prophet ﷺ went to what is known as Wadi al-Qura, and it's a valley where Jews and few Arabs used to live there. The Prophet went to them ﷺ, as they also collaborated with the polytheists in attacking Medina and undermining the efforts of Muslims to spread the da'wah. The Prophet ﷺ surrounded them, but despite the fact that news came from all the Jews that the Prophet ﷺ was always victorious, despite the news that came from Khaybar, with all its might and power, with all its brave soldiers, yet it fell in the hands of Muslims. Despite all of this, they were still defiant. They would not surrender. So the minute the Muslims approached them, they started throwing them with arrows. And their archers managed to kill one of the Prophet's servants, and his name was Mud'am. So someone threw him with an arrow and killed him. The companions said, MashaAllah, praise be to Allah the Almighty. He is in paradise now. He was the servant of the Prophet ﷺ, and he died as a martyr in fighting the Jews. So this is what was apparent to them. Yet the Prophet told them, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that this man, the jacket or the coat or the dress that he took from the booty of Khaybar that was not yet distributed, is burning on his body in his grave. The man, though he was a servant of the Prophet ﷺ, when Allah granted Khaybar to his Prophet, usually no one is allowed to take anything from the booty or from the treasures they put their hands on until the ruler distributes it evenly on the army. So this man, Mud'am, he took this jacket or rope without being distributed. Before the ruler, that is the Prophet ﷺ, gathered the booty and distributed it to the fighters. And this by itself is considered to be stealing, treason, though he may think that he has right because he fought. But still, he went out of the way of the Muslims, and that is why he will be punished for that in his grave. It was not enough that he was the companion of the Prophet ﷺ. It was not enough that he was the servant or he died as a martyr. This was something that he had to be punished for. After the Muslims heard this, everyone started taking out of his belongings what he took before distribution of the booties. And everyone that returned something, the Prophet ﷺ told him this would have been in hell on you if you had not returned it. So whoever brought shoes, he would say, shoes of fire. But alhamdulillah, you've returned it, so now you are saved. When they surrounded Wadi al-Qura, they came out requesting duels. So the first man who came, Az-Zubair ibn al-Awwam, fought with him and killed him. So they sent another knight, another soldier. Az-Zubair ibn al-Awwam killed the second person. And every time they kill someone, the Prophet ﷺ keeps on asking them to accept Islam. He's calling them to Islam. We're not here for the money. Just accept the word of Allah, the Almighty, or surrender. But you don't have to fight. And they still thought that they can manage and do the things that no one before them had succeeded in doing. After the first two men, 11 men came out, one by one. But this time, they were all killed by Ali ibn Abi Talib, on his own. So the third one came, he killed him. The fourth one came, he fought with him and killed him. And escaping without being injured, not even a scratch. And between every killing, the Prophet kept on asking them to come to their senses and accept Islam. 11 men were killed. The siege took place the full day. The following day, just before noon, they were out of breath and they surrendered to the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet and his companions entered their fortresses and they gained, with the grace of Allah, a lot of money and treasures. And again, the Prophet ﷺ dealt with them as he dealt with the people of Khaybar, and he agreed that they work on their lands, providing that they send half of what the earth produces to Medina. Up north, there was also a village by the name of Tayma, and it was occupied by Jews, but it was a bit further. And as the Prophet ﷺ was planning to go to them, an envoy came from them telling the Prophet ﷺ, you don't have to come, we surrender. And we will give you half of what we produce from our lands. And the Prophet ﷺ wrote an agreement with them that there will be no betrayals, there will be no deception, we will be on equal terms in the sense that we will not attack you and you will not collaborate on the Muslims. Alhamdulillah, everything was fine and acceptable. On the way back from Khaybar to Medina, it was night time. So the Prophet ﷺ and his companions set camp, and the Prophet ﷺ, as usual, asked who among the companions would guard us and wake us for Fajr prayer. So Bilal said, I'll do that, O Prophet of Allah. And they all went to bed because, after fighting for so long, after traveling for so long, all what you're looking for is a place to sleep in. And immediately one falls out of being fatigued and tired, goes to sleep directly, not knowing what's going on.
They have to take some rest.
They have to rest. So Bilal kept watching for his companions, and he was their guard.
One man.
one man, well, that more than enough, because if he sensed any movement, he would have woke them. And as he was watching, or as he was on his watch, he leaned a little bit to the back, to a camel, and before knowing, he fell asleep. And everybody was asleep until the sun was in the middle of the sky. They woke up due to the heat of the sun. And the first one to wake up was the Prophet ﷺ. And he said, Bilal. He woke Bilal up. What is this? And Bilal said, asking the pardon of the Prophet ﷺ, he said, by Allah, O Prophet of Allah, who made you sleep, made me sleep. I couldn't hold myself. So the Prophet ﷺ instructed them to move on. And he told them that this camp that we set in is a place where Satan was present. So let's move on. And they moved to another place, and then they prayed Al-Fajr, and they made it up. And this tells us that whenever a person falls asleep and misses a prayer, this means that Satan was there. Therefore, if he wants to make up for that prayer, he should change the room, change the location. And this also indicates to us that if this is the case in the wilderness, while the Prophet ﷺ was on his way to jihad, and it was not intentional, so how would we say to those who intend not to pray Fajr on time? Like those who set up their alarm clocks to go off at an hour or more after Fajr prayer, so that they can attend their college or attend their work. Of course, they are sinful for doing this. And likewise, a person should not pray in places where Satan is always present. As in the case when a place is surrounded by statues and portraits and pictures, a person should avoid praying in an area or in a room of such description. And he should also try to avoid praying in places where music is played or things that do not please Allah the Almighty. Because, again, the presence of Satan is there. And whenever Satan is in a place, or whenever the devils are in a place, angels do not be present. The angels of mercy, the angels that ask Allah Azza wa Jal for forgiveness for the believers, and so on. I believe we have a short break, so stay tuned, and inshallah, we will be right back.
We are excited to inform our viewers that the Quran in Depth with Sheikh Ibrahim Zidan will be filmed live starting on Mondays at 1800 GMT.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about the Quran, وَنُنَزِّلُ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ مَا هُوَ شِفَاءٌ وَرَحْمَةٌ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. That we reveal from the Quran what is cure and mercy to the believers. So the Quran is the cure. Cure physically to the diseases physically in the body and in the heart. We were ordered to recite Surah Al-Fatiha in every time we stand in the Salah. Pillar of the Salah. We need to change our life according to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us, according to this book. As the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, that the Quran is the thing between us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whoever holds fast to it, he would never be led astray.
We will take your calls and answer any questions you may have, as well as help you in your journey to understand the Quran properly. We hope you will join Huda TV and Sheikh Ibrahim Zidan every Monday from 1800 GMT until 1900 GMT for the Quran in Depth.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and welcome back. The Prophet ﷺ, with the grace of Allah, is back in Medina. And over the following few months, he kept on sending small military detachments to the tribes of Ghatafan and Najd in general, just to cool them down and to flex the muscles of the Muslims, showing them that they are not weak and they're not asleep, they're present. So now, alhamdulillah, he got the side and the front of the Jews secured. He got the front of the polytheists in Mecca secured, and Ghatafan, it's almost stable. Ghatafan themselves, the tribe of Ghatafan, it was not very enthusiastic in launching more attacks because they suffered a lot and they found out that Islam was prevailing. So they cooled it a little bit and calmed the situation. When it was Dhul Qa'dah, the 11th month of the Islamic calendar, of the 7th year of Hijrah, it was the time for the Prophet ﷺ, as agreed with the polytheist of Quraysh, that he comes and performs his Umrah. As you remember, a year earlier, he was prevented from entering Mecca, and that caused the Muslims, along with the polytheists, to sign an agreement and a truce by the name of Truce al-Hudaybiyah. The Prophet ﷺ went with those who were prevented from performing Umrah last year, and they all went to Mecca. The Prophet ﷺ took with him 60 camels as form of sacrifice to Allah the Almighty, and this is known as al-Hadi. And these are camels that you take with you as a pilgrim or a person performing Umrah, and you indicate it with signs that this is for Allah only, which means that when you reach your destination and you accomplish your worship, whether it's pilgrimage or Umrah, then you slaughter this for the sake of Allah and you give it to the poor. The Prophet ﷺ also took arms with him. So those who went for Umrah were also armed, because he was not certain that the people of Quraysh would not deceive him or betray him. He was not sure that they would honor the agreement they had. And he had few of his companions guarding the army. When the Prophet went, ﷺ, they were all in all about 2,000 men. Now, last year they were 1,400, and now the number has increased. And they had children and they had women with them, all going with the Prophet ﷺ to perform Umrah. Just before he entered Mecca, they left all their arms in a place with guards over them, and then they entered Mecca only with their swords, as agreed with the people of Quraysh. The people of Quraysh themselves did not want to be present in Mecca when the Prophet ﷺ entered it. So they went on top of a mountain named by Qu'ayqi'an that overlooks the Kaaba. They went there and they observed the Prophet ﷺ and his companions performing their Umrah. As the Prophet ﷺ entered the masjid, the haram, Abdullah ibn Ruwaha, and you know Abdullah ibn Ruwaha, he's one of the poets of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet had three poets: Abdullah ibn Rawaha, Hassan ibn Thabit, and Ka'b ibn Malik. And we will get, inshallah, to know Ka'b's story. He has a very important role and a story in the seerah. We will come to that later on, inshallah. So Abdullah ibn Rawaha, as they were entering the masjid, was chanting with poetry. praising the victory that Allah Azza wa Jal has granted His Prophet, and ridiculing of the mushrikeen, of the polytheists who are fighting and resisting something that cannot be resisted because it's from Allah. Umar ibn Khattab, may Allah be pleased with him, tried to hush him, because what are you doing? We are in the haram. How do you say poetry in the haram area? So the Prophet ﷺ told Umar, leave him, let him continue, because his poetry is harder and more effective in the polytheist than throwing them with arrows. As we know that this was the influential form of media at the time of the Prophet ﷺ.
I heard that the language reached high level that time, to a level that they used to make markets for it, like share markets, and they used to be like picky to a level that whenever they see or they read the poetry which is very high, they hang it up on the Kaaba itself there, to a form of appreciating that kind of poetry.
That it is true. In the time of the Prophet ﷺ and 100 years earlier, the language, the Arabic, has reached its peaks. It had reached the peak in eloquence and beauty, to the extent that they used to have annual markets like Uqab or Majinna and so on, where people would come and buy and sell, but at the same time to say poetry. And they used to have what is known to be as al-mu'allaqat, the thing that used to be hang out. And they used to even hang it in the Kaaba, in the sense that it was so honored and beautiful.
Appreciable.
Yes, they appreciated beautiful language. And that is why when the Quran was revealed to the Prophet ﷺ, they were astonished. First of all, because of its perfection. Second of all, because of the illiteracy of the Prophet ﷺ. Third of all, because the Prophet himself, though he was with them 40 years of his age, he never said one poem in his life. And he was not even known to be able to say poetry correctly without making a mistake. Which meant that, as Allah Azza wa Jal described him in the Holy Quran, that we had not teach him how to say poetry. And he should not be taught. This is something that is beyond his capability to learn poetry. Because then it would be mixed up with the Quran, and Quran had to be of its kind, one of its kind.
So the testimony that that Quran or those words weren't from him, and even sometimes they were confused. Sometimes they said it's from Jinni, sometimes they said it could be from somewhere else.
They tried their best to degrade the Quran. So they said, well, these are all revelations of the jinn. It's something from the devils. And some said that he was a priest. Others said that he was a poet. And others said that he was insane. But no matter what they said, everyone who heard the Quran could not help but believing in it. And some of the companions came with a cotton in their ears. And the Prophet asked them, why are you doing this? And they say that they told us, do not listen to him because he's a magician. He's a sorcerer. The minute you hear him, you will follow him. And some of them would say, I'm a sane person. I know poetry and I have my own intellect and intelligence. I can decide what's right and what's wrong. And the minute he heard the Quran, he knew that it was not from this earth and that it was divine. The Prophet ﷺ began his Umrah with his companions. And as the polytheists were overlooking the Kaaba and watching them, they started talking among themselves that the Muslims came and they're weak and they're tired, and the fever of Medina must have gotten them to the ground. So now they have no power.
They are armless.
They are?
Armless.
It's not the armor they're taking concern about. They're talking about their physical condition. So the Prophet ﷺ heard about this, and he requested his companion to do what we call al-ittiba', and this is showing your right shoulder and having your garment under your arm and over your left shoulder. And he instructed them to walk in a fast manner, like the army do, the first 3 rounds while going round the Kaaba in Tawaf. And he said, may Allah have mercy on people who show strength from themselves to the polytheist. So the Muslims did this. And the first 3 rounds, they were marching in a show of strength. And the polytheists from above, when they saw this, they said, these guys are not human. They are so strong. Look at them. They came traveling, and yet they're still this strong. So this again added to the terror and fear in the hearts of the polytheist. After 3 days, they sent to Ali ibn Abi Talib, and they told him that, tell your cousin that the 3 days are over, and he must now honor the agreement and leave Mecca, out of it. So this is exactly what the Prophet and the companions did. They, after finishing their Umrah, they slaughtered their sacrifice near Marwa, and they all shaved their heads and left Mecca, going back to Medina. There, Allah the Almighty revealed the verse of the Quran where it says that Allah the Almighty has brought the dream that you had seen to reality, that you will enter the holy mosque in peace, and you will shave or cut short your hair, not fearing anything, with the grace and will of Allah the Almighty. The Prophet ﷺ, on his way back, married Maymuna bint al-Harith, as we will inshallah also comment on that when we meet next time. So until then, fi amanillah, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Mm-hmm.